Welcome back to another episode of Infidelity Tales Lab. We're thankful for your continued viewership. Before we begin, tell us, where in the world are you watching from? We love knowing our global reach. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1. Calculated Risks. Vincent Keller stared at the quarterly earnings report on his desk. His security firm, Sentinel Shield, had just landed its biggest contract yet, providing comprehensive protection for Phoenix Tech's new quantum computing division. The contract represented everything Vincent had worked for since founding his company 7 years ago. A perfect blend of physical security systems and cutting-edge cybersecurity protocols that nobody else in the industry could match. His office phone buzzed. Mr. Keller, Principal Whitman from Brookfield Elementary, is on line 2. It's about Leo. Vincent sighed, glancing at the framed photo on his desk. Himself, his wife Audra, 10-year-old Nora, and 6-year-old Leo at Disneyland last summer. For smiling faces. The perfect family. Put her through, he said. After a brief conversation about Leo's incident at school, Vincent grabbed his keys. Another fight. The third this month. Something was wrong with his normally even-tempered son, and Vincent was determined to find out what. As he drove to the school, his mind drifted to Audra. They'd met 12 years ago when his security firm was contracted to revamp her father's jewelry business security. Richard Preston had been one of the most respected jewelers in Boston, and Audra had been groomed to take over the family business. Her keen eye for detail and love of precision had captivated Vincent immediately. She was his perfect match, intelligent, driven, and captivating. The school principal was waiting with Leo in her office. The boy's eyes were red, his small fists clenched in his lap. Leo got into an altercation with another student today, Principal Whitman explained. He refuses to tell us why. Vincent knelt before his son. What happened, buddy? Leo's eyes welled with tears. Tommy said Mom has a boyfriend. He said his mom saw them at the Harbor View Hotel. Vincent felt his blood run cold, but his face remained impassive. Years of military training and security work had taught him to control his reactions. We'll talk about this at home, he said calmly, taking Leo's hand. During the drive home, Vincent's mind raced through the past few months. Audra's late nights at the jewelry store, her increased business trips, the password-protected second phone he'd glimpsed in her purse, the sudden disinterest in their intimacy. At home, Vincent sat with Leo in the backyard treehouse, their special place for father-son talks. Tommy's just making up stories, Vincent assured him. Sometimes people say mean things that aren't true. But later that night, after the children were in bed, Vincent accessed his home security system. He'd installed it himself, state-of-the-art cameras, motion sensors, and data logging that tracked comings and goings. He pulled up the logs from the past 3 months. The pattern was unmistakable. Audra's late nights at the store aligned perfectly with the jewelry shop's closing time. She left the store, but didn't come home for hours afterward. Vincent felt his chest tighten as he cross-referenced the dates with her location data from their family phone plan. The Harbor View Hotel appeared multiple times. Vincent closed his laptop, his face expressionless. He wouldn't confront her yet. First, he needed to know everything: who, what, when, and why. He needed to understand the full scope of the betrayal before deciding his next move. Because Vincent Keller never made a move without calculating all the risks. Chapter 2. The Gathering Storm. Vincent maintained his routine over the next 2 weeks, giving no indication that anything was amiss. He kissed Audra goodbye each morning, attended Nora's soccer games, helped Leo with his math homework, and continued growing his security empire. Behind this facade of normalcy, Vincent methodically gathered evidence. He installed a custom tracking app on Audra's primary phone, deployed specialized software to recover deleted texts, and set up discreet surveillance. The man in question was Brennan Walsh, a high-end real estate developer who specialized in luxury properties. He had met Audra 6 months ago when he commissioned a custom line of jewelry for his most exclusive clients. Tall, polished, with an easy charm that opened doors throughout Boston's elite circles, Brennan represented old money and the social connections Audra had always coveted. Through carefully placed cameras, Vincent captured footage of Audra and Brennan together. Their rendezvous had evolved into a regular Thursday pattern at the Harbor View, followed by Sunday afternoon meetings at Brennan's waterfront penthouse. Vincent also discovered that Brennan had a history of affairs with married women. 3 previous relationships followed the same pattern, intense affairs lasting about a year, ending when the women divorced their husbands. None of those women ended up with Brennan long-term. One evening, Audra announced she had an emergency at the jewelry store. A special client needed an appraisal that couldn't wait until morning. "Don't wait up," she said, kissing Vincent's cheek. "I might be very late." Vincent nodded, his face betraying nothing. "No problem. I need to finalize the Phoenix Tech protocols anyway." As soon as her car disappeared down the driveway, Vincent opened his laptop and activated the GPS tracker. He watched the blinking dot of Audra's phone as it traveled not to the jewelry store downtown, but toward the harbor. The dot stopped at Brennan's luxury condominium building. Vincent took a deep breath, closed the laptop, and walked upstairs to check on the children. Nora was reading in bed, her blonde hair, so like her mother's, spread across her pillow. "Daddy," she said, looking up from her book, "when is Mom coming home?" "Late tonight, sweetheart. She has to help a special customer." Nora frowned. "She's always helping special customers now." Vincent felt a stab of anger, but kept his voice gentle. "That's part of running a successful business. Just like I sometimes have to work late, too." Next, he checked on Leo, who was already asleep, clutching his favorite dinosaur toy. Vincent stood in the doorway, watching his son's peaceful breathing, and made a silent vow. Whatever happened next, he would protect his children from the fallout. The next day, Vincent contracted a private investigator to dig deeper into Brennan Walsh's background. The PI discovered that beneath Brennan's polished exterior lurked a web of questionable business practices. His real estate developments were funded by a maze of shell companies, and several of his projects had faced lawsuits over safety violations and permit irregularities. More interestingly, Brennan had recently begun pressuring Audra to incorporate her family's jewelry business into his portfolio of luxury brands. He'd introduced her to wealthy investors who could help expand Preston Jewelers beyond its current scale. Vincent understood now. This wasn't just about a physical affair. Brennan was systematically working to pull Audra away from her old life, including her husband and family. The affair was just one part of a larger strategy to acquire both Audra and her family's prestigious jewelry business. That night, Vincent lay awake beside his sleeping wife, studying her face in the dim light filtering through the curtains. 10 years of marriage, 2 children, countless shared dreams. All of it built on what he had believed was an unbreakable foundation of trust and loyalty. His military training had taught him that the most dangerous enemies were those who appeared as allies. Audra had become the enemy within his own home, and Brennan Walsh was the external threat. Both needed to be neutralized, but Vincent wouldn't rush. The perfect operation required patience, precision, and proper intelligence. He would wait, watch, and prepare. The storm was gathering, but only Vincent knew when and where it would break. Chapter 3: Shattered Glass. 3 months of surveillance had provided Vincent with everything he needed. He had compiled a comprehensive file on the affair: dates, times, locations, photographs, and recordings. He also had detailed information on Brennan Walsh's business dealings, including evidence of permit bribery and tax evasion that could be devastating if revealed to the right authorities. It was time for the confrontation. Vincent chose a Sunday evening after the children had gone to bed. Audra was in their home office, working on the jewelry store's quarterly reports, or so she claimed. Vincent knew she was actually messaging Brennan about their planned getaway the following weekend. He entered the office silently, placed a thick folder on the desk in front of her, and sat down in the adjacent chair. "What's this?" Audra asked, glancing up from her laptop. "Evidence," Vincent replied calmly, "of your affair with Brennan Walsh." The color drained from Audra's face. She opened the folder with trembling fingers, then quickly closed it after seeing the first photograph, she and Brennan embracing in the elevator of his condominium. "How long have you known?" she whispered. "Long enough. The real question is how long you thought you could keep it hidden." Audra's initial shock quickly transformed into defensive anger. You were never really present, Vincent. Always working, always obsessed with your security systems and corporate clients. Brennan makes me feel alive, appreciated. Vincent's expression remained neutral. And I'm sure he appreciates your family's jewelry business connections as much as he appreciates you. That's not fair, Audra snapped. Brennan sees potential in me that you never did. He wants to help me expand the business globally. After he helps you destroy our family? Vincent's voice remained eerily calm. Did you plan to take the children when you left? Tears welled in Audra's eyes. I never wanted to hurt the children, but you were willing to hurt me. You don't need me, Vincent. You never have. Your work, your systems, your controlled, calculated life, that's your real passion. Vincent leaned forward. You're right about one thing. I am calculating, and I've calculated exactly what this divorce will cost you. He pulled out another document, a prenuptial agreement they had signed before their marriage. Vincent had insisted on it to protect his fledgling security business, but it worked both ways. It clearly stated that infidelity would result in the unfaithful party forfeiting any claim to the other's business assets. You'll get nothing from Sentinel Shield, Vincent stated flatly, and I'll fight for full custody of the children. Audra's tears flowed freely now. You wouldn't separate me from Nora and Leo. They need their mother. Do they need a mother who lies? Who sneaks around with another man while their father works to provide for the family? Vincent's control slipped for just a moment, revealing the rage beneath. You made a choice, Audra. Now you'll live with the consequences. The divorce proceedings were swift but brutal. Audra fought for joint custody, which Vincent ultimately agreed to, not out of mercy, but strategy. The children would spend weekdays with him and weekends with Audra. This arrangement gave Vincent the time he needed to implement the next phase of his plan while maintaining a relationship with his children. 2 months after the divorce was finalized, Audra moved in with Brennan Walsh. She sold her share of the family jewelry business to her younger brother, using the money to invest in Brennan's latest development project, a luxury residence called the Lighthouse. Vincent focused on his children and his business. He expanded Sentinel Shield's operations, securing government contracts that doubled the company's value. To the outside world, he appeared to be thriving despite the divorce. Nora struggled with the new family arrangement, becoming withdrawn and resentful toward her mother. Leo, however, adapted more easily, though he still didn't fully understand why his parents couldn't live together anymore. 6 months after the divorce, Vincent received a gilt-edged envelope in the mail. Inside was an invitation to Audra and Brennan's wedding, scheduled for the following month at the Lighthouse, Brennan's crowning achievement and a symbol of their new life together. Vincent slipped the invitation into his desk drawer, a slight smile playing at the corners of his mouth. The invitation wasn't a peace offering. It was Audra and Brennan's way of showing that they had won, that they had moved on to bigger and better things. But Vincent knew something they didn't. The game had only just begun. Chapter 4: Foundation of Lies. The sprawling ballroom of the Lighthouse glittered with crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Boston Harbor. 200 guests in formal attire mingled, celebrating the union of Brennan Walsh and Audra Preston. At the entrance, a magnificent ice sculpture depicted 2 intertwined swans, a symbol of eternal love that would melt away before morning. Vincent stood near the bar, nursing a whiskey. He had come alone, dressed in an impeccable charcoal suit that highlighted his athletic build. Several women had already approached him, intrigued by the handsome, stoic man with penetrating eyes. "I'm surprised you came," said a voice beside him. It was Philip Preston, Audra's brother and the new owner of Preston Jewelers. "For the children's sake," Vincent replied. "They're part of this celebration, too." Philip nodded toward the dance floor, where 10-year-old Nora twirled in a lavender dress, while 6-year-old Leo fidgeted uncomfortably in his suit nearby. They seemed to be handling it well. Vincent merely nodded, his eyes tracking Brennan Walsh as he worked the room, shaking hands and accepting congratulations. The real estate developer had spared no expense for this wedding, transforming the top floor of the Lighthouse into a showcase of wealth and influence. "Mr. Keller." A server approached with a tray of champagne. "The bride requests your presence for the family photos." Vincent followed the server to a secluded terrace where Audra waited in her designer wedding gown. The ocean breeze gently lifted her veil as she turned to face him. "Thank you for coming," she said, "and for bringing the children. It means a lot to me. As I said in my RSVP, I'm here to support Nora and Leo during this transition." Vincent's tone was professional, as if addressing a client rather than his ex-wife. Audra studied his face, searching for any hint of bitterness or anger, but Vincent's expression revealed nothing. "You look well, Vincent. Success is the best revenge. Isn't that what they say?" Before Audra could respond, the photographer called them over for the family portraits. Vincent stood beside his children, smiling appropriately for the camera while maintaining a calculated distance from Audra and Brennan. After the photos, Vincent rejoined a reception. He made small talk with guests, many of whom were prominent figures in Boston's business community. To everyone who asked, he expressed nothing but well wishes for the newlyweds. Meanwhile, Leo had grown increasingly restless. Vincent watched as his son wandered between tables, eventually slipping away from the reception area toward the service corridors. Concerned, Vincent followed. He found Leo in an empty hallway, staring intently at something on a sleek smartphone, a device Vincent didn't recognize. "Leo, what are you doing back here? And whose phone is that?" Leo jumped, startled by his father's voice. "Dad, we need to leave. Now." The urgency in his son's voice was unmistakable. Vincent knelt beside him, smiling gently. "Why?" Leo glanced nervously over his shoulder before holding out the phone. "Look at this." The screen showed a video of Brennan Walsh in what appeared to be his office at the lighthouse. He was arguing heatedly with a man Vincent recognized as Oscar Delgado, a city building inspector. Money changed hands, followed by building permits being signed. Vincent froze, his mind racing. This was blatant bribery, recorded in high definition. And somehow, impossibly, his 6-year-old son had this evidence in his hands. "Leo, where did you get this phone?" "It was under the chair in Mr. Walsh's dressing room. I was playing hide-and-seek with cousin Timmy and found it." Leo's eyes were wide. "Dad, is Mr. Walsh a bad guy?" Vincent carefully took the phone, noting that it was an encrypted model, the kind used by those who valued privacy above all else. "Why do you think we need to leave?" "Because that man in the video was here earlier. He saw me coming out of the dressing room and asked if I'd been inside. He looked really mad." Vincent's protective instincts flared. If Delgado suspected Leo had found the phone and seen its contents, the boy could be in danger. "You did the right thing showing me this," Vincent said, pocketing the device. "Let's go find your sister. I think it's time we headed home." As they turned to leave, Vincent spotted a shadow moving at the end of the hallway. Someone had been listening. Vincent gathered both children, making a plausible excuse to Audra about Leo feeling unwell. As they left the lighthouse, he noticed a black SUV pulling away from the curb, following at a discreet distance. Back at his fortified home, Vincent examined the phone more thoroughly. Beyond the bribery video, he found evidence of Brennan's entire corrupt operation. Falsified structural reports, safety violations hidden from inspectors, and substandard materials used throughout the lighthouse's construction. The building where Audra now lived. The building where his children would spend their weekends. The building currently hosting hundreds of wedding guests. Vincent accessed a secure computer system and began downloading the phone's contents. This unexpected windfall of evidence would accelerate his plans significantly, but it also created a new problem. Leo was now potentially in danger. The sound of his security perimeter alarm interrupted his thoughts. The system showed a vehicle stopping outside his gate. Vincent switched to the external cameras and saw the same black SUV from earlier. 2 men approached the gate, but retreated when the automated security warning activated. Vincent made 2 calls that night. The first was to his most trusted employee, Barrett Reese, a former Delta Force operator who now served as Sentinel Shield's head of operations. "I need a security detail for my children, starting immediately," Vincent instructed. "And prepare the safe house in New Hampshire. We may need it." The second call was to a data security specialist who owed Vincent a favor. "I need a complete background sweep on Oscar Delgado, building inspector for the Boston metropolitan area. Everything: financial records, communications, associations. Priority status. As Vincent hung up, he gazed at the sleeping forms of his children. The stakes had just been raised significantly. What had begun as a personal vendetta against Audra and Brennan was now potentially life-threatening for his family. Vincent had planned to dismantle Brennan Walsh's life piece by piece over the course of months. Now, that timeline would need to be accelerated, because Vincent Keller protected what was his, and anyone who threatened his children would learn just how dangerous he could be. Chapter 5. Structural Weakness. The morning after the wedding, Vincent implemented enhanced security protocols for his family. Barrett Reese assigned 2 experienced operatives to guard the children at all times, former military personnel with specific training in child protection. Their presence was explained to Nora and Leo as special friends who would be helping the family for a while. Vincent also activated his network of informants within Boston's construction industry. Within hours, he had confirmation of what the phone evidence suggested. The lighthouse, Brennan Walsh's crowning achievement, was fundamentally unsound. Corners had been cut throughout the construction process. Load-bearing supports were inadequate. Electrical systems failed to meet code requirements. Fire suppression systems were substandard. Walsh had bribed multiple inspectors to overlook these deficiencies, all to save money and accelerate the project's completion. Worst of all, the building was already showing signs of structural stress. Hairline cracks had appeared in several support columns. The building wasn't in immediate danger of collapse, but it was far from the luxury haven its residents believed they'd purchased. Vincent faced a moral dilemma. Exposing these flaws would protect innocent residents, including his children during their weekend visits, but would delay his meticulously planned revenge. After careful consideration, he chose a third option: anonymous notification to state-level inspectors who couldn't be bought by Walsh, timed to coincide with the next phase of his plan. 3 days after the wedding, Vincent received a call from Audra. "Someone broke into our penthouse while we were on our honeymoon," she said, her voice tight with anxiety. "They didn't take anything, but they went through our files in Brennan's home office." "Have you filed a police report?" Vincent asked, his tone neutral despite knowing exactly who had orchestrated the break-in. "Brennan doesn't want the police involved. He says it might have been industrial espionage related to his next development project." Vincent paused deliberately. "If you're concerned about the children's safety during their visits, they can stay with me until this is resolved." "No," Audra replied quickly. "Brennan's hired additional security. The children will be safe here." After hanging up, Vincent contacted his operative inside the lighthouse's security team. "What's Walsh's status?" "Panicking," came the reply. "He can't find his private phone and suspects corporate sabotage. He's hired a digital forensics team to sweep for surveillance devices." "And Delgado?" "He's gone underground. Cleaned out his bank accounts yesterday and hasn't reported to work." Vincent nodded, though the operative couldn't see him. Oscar Delgado's sudden disappearance suggested the inspector feared exposure, exactly as planned. That evening, Vincent received a secure video call from his data specialist. "You need to see this," she said, transmitting encrypted files to Vincent's system. The information revealed that Brennan Walsh's financial empire was leveraged to the breaking point. The lighthouse had gone dramatically over budget due to rushed construction timelines. Walsh had taken enormous loans, using other properties as collateral. If the lighthouse failed, either commercially or structurally, his entire business would collapse. Even more damning, Vincent discovered that Audra had remortgaged her share of Preston Jewelers to invest in Walsh's venture. Her brother Philip knew nothing about this secondary loan against the family business. Vincent spent the night mapping out connections and vulnerabilities. By morning, he had identified the perfect structural weakness in Walsh's life. Not in his buildings, but in his web of financial deceptions. The following day, Philip Preston received an anonymous email containing proof of Audra's unauthorized loan against the family business. Vincent watched from his car outside Preston Jewelers as Philip stormed out, visibly agitated, and drove directly to the lighthouse. Meanwhile, the state building inspector's office received an anonymous package containing select evidence from the encrypted phone, specifically focused on safety violations that endanger residents. The documentation was carefully curated to trigger an immediate inspection without revealing the full extent of Walsh's corruption. Phase 1 was complete. The foundations of Brennan Walsh's life were beginning to crack. That weekend, when the children returned from their first official visit to their mother's new home, Leo seemed withdrawn. Vincent found him sitting alone in the backyard treehouse. "Everything okay, buddy?" Vincent asked, climbing up to join his son. Leo shrugged. Mom and Mr. Walsh were fighting a lot. About money and some people called investors. Vincent kept his expression neutral. "Sometimes grown-ups worry about work problems. Mr. Walsh said some bad words about you," Leo continued. "When they didn't know I was listening. He said you were trying to ruin them." Vincent placed a hand on his son's shoulder. "What do you think about that?" Leo looked up, his young face serious. "I think Mr. Walsh is afraid of you. And I think—" He hesitated. "I think he has more bad videos on another phone. I saw him watching one and hiding it when Mom came in." Vincent's interest sharpened. "Did you see what was on it?" "Just a little bit. It looked like the same office, but different people." Leo's eyes widened suddenly. "Dad, one of Mr. Walsh's friends kept looking at me weird all weekend. Like he was mad at me. Is it because of that phone I found at the wedding?" Vincent felt a cold fury build inside him. "Possibly. But don't worry. No one's going to hurt you. Promise?" "I promise." Vincent's voice was steel. "And I always keep my promises." That night, after the children were asleep, Vincent made another call to Barrett Reese. "Change of plans," he said. "We're accelerating the timeline. I want everything in place within 48 hours. "That's aggressive," Barrett replied. "What's changed?" "They've threatened my son. Indirectly, but unmistakably." Vincent's voice was cold and precise. "I won't wait for them to become more direct." After ending the call, Vincent went to his secure room in the basement, a space built to military specifications, with soundproofed walls and equipment that would be at home in a high-level intelligence agency. He opened a hidden safe and removed a small case containing specialized equipment. For the past year, even before discovering Audra's affair, Vincent had been developing an advanced security system for high-value clients, a system that could bypass conventional protections undetected. The prototype was complete but untested in the field. Until now, Vincent had planned to dismantle Brennan Walsh's life systematically over months. But threats against his child had changed the equation. Now, Walsh would experience the full force of Vincent Keller's vengeance in one devastating assault. Because Vincent had long lived by a simple code: betray him, and he might consider mercy. Threaten his children, and there would be none. Chapter 6. Pressure Points. A week later, Brennan Walsh stood in his penthouse office at the lighthouse, staring at the Boston skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. The view had once represented his triumph, the culmination of years building his real estate empire. Now it was beginning to feel like a cage. State building inspectors had arrived unexpectedly 2 days earlier, conducting thorough examinations of structural elements, electrical systems, and fire safety protocols. They had been coldly professional, immune to Walsh's usual charm and deflection tactics. "They've issued preliminary findings," said Audra, entering the office with a thick envelope. Her face was pale, her usual confidence visibly shaken. "It's not good, Brennan." The report detailed multiple code violations, not enough to condemn the building outright, but sufficient to require expensive remediation and potentially trigger resident lawsuits. Additionally, the inspectors had referred certain findings to the district attorney's office for further investigation. "This is a minor setback," Walsh insisted, though sweat beaded on his forehead. "I've handled government busybodies before." "Not like this," Audra countered. "These aren't local inspectors. They're from a state oversight board, beyond your network of influence." Walsh slammed his fist on the desk. "Someone's targeting me. First my private phone disappears, then Philip confronts you about the business loan. Now, these inspectors. This isn't coincidence." Audra wrapped her arms around herself. "You think it's Vincent? Who else would benefit from destroying us? Who else has the resources and motivation?" "Vincent isn't vindictive," Audra argued, though uncertainty tinged her voice. He's calculating, yes, but he wouldn't. He's a security expert with military training and government connections. Walsh interrupted. He's exactly the type who could orchestrate something like this. Their conversation was interrupted by Walsh's assistant announcing the arrival of his investors. 3 men representing the consortium that had funded the lighthouse's completion. We need to project absolute confidence, Walsh whispered urgently to Audra. Our entire future depends on keeping their trust. The meeting began cordially, but quickly descended into thinly veiled threats. The investors had received anonymous information about structural deficiencies and potential legal liabilities. They demanded immediate action to protect their investment. Perhaps we should consider bringing in an independent contractor to verify these findings, suggested the lead investor, Westmore. Someone with impeccable credentials in building security and systems integrity. I can handle this internally, Walsh insisted. Westmore's smile didn't reach his eyes. Actually, we've already identified the perfect candidate. Sentinel Shield has an outstanding reputation for thoroughness and discretion. Walsh paled visibly. That's Vincent Keller's company. Indeed, Westmore replied. Is there some reason you object to working with the industry leader? Before Walsh could respond, his personal phone rang, a number he didn't recognize. When he answered, the blood drained from his face. Mr. Walsh, said a clinical voice on the speaker, this is Dr. Landon from Boston Memorial. There's been an incident involving Oscar Delgado. Before losing consciousness, he specifically requested we contact you. After ending the call, Walsh turned to find the investors watching him with newfound suspicion. A former associate, he explained weakly. Nothing related to this project, but the damage was done. The meeting ended with the investors imposing strict conditions. Either Walsh cooperate fully with the coming investigation, including the involvement of Sentinel Shield, or they would withdraw their financial support and pursue legal remedies. After they departed, Walsh collapsed into his chair. This is a coordinated attack. Keller is systematically destroying everything we've built. Audra stared out at the darkening sky. I need to protect my children. If what you're saying is true, if Vincent is behind this, then escalating the situation will only make things worse. It's too late for that, Walsh snapped. Don't you see? He won't stop until he's taken everything from us. I should speak with him, Audra suggested. For the children's sake, he might. No, Walsh interrupted. I have my own contingency plans. People who can handle Keller permanently. Audra recoiled. What are you saying? I'm saying I won't be ruined by your ex-husband's vendetta. There are people who owe me favors. People who can make problems disappear. You can't be serious. He's the father of my children. Walsh's expression hardened. You chose me, Audra. You chose this life. Now you need to decide where your loyalty truly lies. Across the city, in his secure control room, Vincent watched the entire exchange through the surveillance system he'd covertly installed in Walsh's office during the break-in. Audra's shocked expression at Walsh's implied threat confirmed what Vincent had suspected. She had never fully understood the man she'd married. Vincent turned to Barrett Reese, who stood silently beside him. Walsh just threatened my life. Barrett nodded grimly. That changes the rules of engagement. Implementation of Phase 2 begins tonight, Vincent instructed. And alert the protective detail for the children. Double coverage, emergency protocols in effect. Barrett hesitated. Sir, if Walsh is contacting the kind of people who make problems disappear, we should consider extracting you to a secure location as well. Vincent's smile was cold. That won't be necessary. Let him send his people. They'll find I'm not as easily eliminated as he hopes. Later that evening, Vincent received a text from Audra. We need to talk about the children. Privately, Vincent recognized the attempt at manipulation. Walsh was using Audra to lure him into a vulnerable position. The fact that she was complicit confirmed the final dissolution of any lingering respect he might have felt for her. He replied simply, all communication regarding the children should go through our lawyers. Then he activated the final sequence of his plan, a series of precisely timed information releases that would completely dismantle Brennan Walsh's life over the next 72 hours. First, The complete building inspection records would be anonymously delivered to every resident of the lighthouse, along with a detailed analysis of how these deficiencies endangered their safety. Second, Walsh's investors would receive comprehensive documentation of his financial deceptions, including evidence that he had been simultaneously pledging the same assets as collateral for multiple loans. Third, select journalists would receive evidence of Walsh's history of bribing officials, complete with banking records showing payments. And finally, a specialized data package would be sent to federal prosecutors, containing evidence sufficient to justify a full investigation into Walsh's business practices across multiple states. Vincent had originally planned to release this information gradually over months, allowing Walsh to suffer the slow destruction of everything he valued. But Walsh's threat had changed the calculus. Now, destruction would come all at once, overwhelming and inescapable. As Vincent finalized the automated release sequence, his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message contained only coordinates and a time, a remote location, midnight. Barrett, looking over Vincent's shoulder, frowned. "It's obviously a trap." "Obviously," Vincent agreed, "which makes it the perfect opportunity to end this conclusively." Barrett's expression showed concern. "Sir, with respect, engaging directly violates every security protocol. We can accomplish our objectives without placing you at risk." Vincent's eyes were cold. "This isn't just about objectives anymore. Walsh threatened my children. That demands a personal response." As he began preparing for the midnight meeting, Vincent received an unexpected call from Philip Preston, Audra's brother. "I need to see you immediately," Philip said, his voice strained. "It's about Audra and the children. Something's wrong." Vincent hesitated only briefly. "Meet me at Sentinel headquarters in 30 minutes. Come alone." The pieces were moving faster now, configurations shifting unpredictably. But Vincent had trained his entire life for exactly this kind of strategic chaos. Because in the end, his opponents were playing a game they barely understood, while Vincent had written the rules. Chapter 7. Collapse. Vincent arrived early at the abandoned shipyard, positioning himself with clear sight lines of the surrounding area. The midnight meeting was indeed a trap, just as he had expected, but not the crude ambush Walsh had planned. Through thermal imaging equipment, Vincent detected 5 armed men concealed among the shipping containers. Their positions formed a classic kill box, a tactical arrangement designed to eliminate a target with overlapping fields of fire. Amateur work. Predictable. Vincent activated his phone and accessed a secure application. On the screen, a 3D rendering of the lighthouse appeared, with critical stress points highlighted in red. With a single command, he could trigger the release of all the accumulated evidence against Walsh. With another, he could activate the specialized equipment he had planted throughout the lighthouse during the security inspection conducted by Sentinel Shield operatives. But Vincent waited. Timing was everything. His earpiece crackled. "Sir, we have movement at the south entrance." 2 vehicles approaching. The first car parked at a distance. Brennan Walsh emerged, scanning the surroundings nervously. The second vehicle, an unmarked van, positioned itself closer to the hidden gunman. Vincent smiled coldly. Exactly as anticipated, he pressed a button on his phone, sending a pre-recorded message to Walsh's phone. "Look up." As Walsh frantically searched the darkness above him, powerful spotlights suddenly illuminated the entire area. Simultaneously, the sound of multiple police sirens filled the air. The hidden gunmen broke cover, running for their vehicles. Walsh stood frozen in the harsh light, suddenly exposed and vulnerable. Vincent spoke into his communication device. "Execute." The unmarked van's side doors slid open, revealing not hired killers but Barrett Reese and a team of former military operatives wearing body cameras. They quickly apprehended the fleeing gunmen while documenting everything. Walsh finally spotted Vincent walking calmly toward him, silhouetted against the lights. "What is this?" Walsh demanded, his voice cracking. "Where are the police?" "There are no police," Vincent replied evenly. "Just as there are no real gunmen targeting me. Your associates were intercepted and replaced hours ago." Walsh's face contorted with rage and fear. What do you want from me? I want you to understand something, Vincent said, his voice deadly quiet. You threatened my children. That was your final mistake. I never threatened your children. Walsh protested. This is insanity. Vincent held up his phone, playing the recorded conversation from Walsh's office. I have my own contingency plans. People who can handle Keller permanently. You were recording me? In my own home. Walsh's shock was genuine. The same way you recorded your bribery meetings with inspectors, Vincent countered. The phone Leo found at your wedding? It contained quite the collection of videos. Walsh paled. The boy. He's been your spy all along. Vincent's expression hardened. My son found your phone by accident. But you and your associates made him a target. Another critical error. He showed Walsh the screen of his phone, where the 3D model of the lighthouse still glowed. In approximately 10 minutes, every resident of your building will receive detailed information about its structural deficiencies. Your investors will learn about your financial deceptions. Prosecutors will receive evidence of your criminal activities. And Audra will discover exactly what kind of man she married. Walsh lunged forward desperately, but Vincent sidestepped easily, using Walsh's momentum to send him sprawling to the ground. You're finished, Walsh. Your reputation, your business, your freedom, all gone. Vincent's voice remained unervingly calm. Not because you took my wife, she made her choice, but because you threatened my family. As Walsh struggled to his feet, Vincent delivered his final blow. Oh, and Philip knows everything now. About Audra remortgaging Preston Jewelers, about your plan to absorb the business after bankrupting it. He's already filed for an emergency injunction to protect the family assets. Walsh's face crumpled as he realized the full extent of his defeat. You can't do this. Those building modifications can be explained. The financial arrangements were complex but legal. I have lawyers. What you have, Vincent interrupted, is approximately 9 minutes to decide how you want this to end. You can run, though I wouldn't recommend it. You can face the consequences of your actions. Or you can try to mitigate the damage by cooperating fully with authorities. Walsh's phone began ringing incessantly. Investors, business partners, lawyers, all simultaneously discovering his betrayals. Why? Walsh whispered, suddenly looking older and smaller. Why not just expose me? Why this elaborate game? Vincent studied him dispassionately. Because I wanted you to experience exactly what you inflicted on others. The slow realization that everything you built was founded on lies. The helplessness of watching it all collapse around you. The knowledge that you brought this on yourself. As Walsh sank to his knees, Vincent turned and walked away, leaving him surrounded by the ruins of his life. Back in his vehicle, Vincent confirmed the automated release of all evidence packages. Then he made one final call. It's done, he told Barrett. Proceed with Phase 3. Because while Walsh's destruction was nearly complete, Audra's reckoning had only just begun. Chapter 8. Fault Lines. The Preston family estate stood on a cliff overlooking the Atlantic, a Victorian mansion that had witnessed 5 generations of family history. Tonight, it would witness the final unraveling of Audra Preston's carefully constructed facade. Philip Preston had arranged an emergency family meeting under the pretense of discussing the jewelry business's future. The actual agenda was far more consequential. Vincent arrived precisely on time, noting the security personnel discreetly positioned around the property, his own people, integrated with the Preston family's regular security detail. Nothing would happen tonight that he hadn't anticipated. Inside, the family had gathered in the wood-paneled library. Audra sat rigidly beside her mother, Eleanor Preston, the family matriarch. Philip stood by the fireplace, his expression grim. Various aunts, uncles, and cousins filled the remaining seats, all sensing the unusual tension in the room. Notably absent was Brennan Walsh, who was currently being interviewed by federal agents regarding construction fraud and bribery allegations that had mysteriously surfaced hours earlier. When Vincent entered, Audra's eyes widened in shock. What is he doing here? This is a family meeting. Vincent is here at my invitation, Philip stated firmly. What we're discussing tonight affects him and his children directly. Eleanor Preston straightened in her chair. At 72, she remained the family's moral authority and keeper of its legacy. What exactly are we discussing, Philip? Your message suggested some urgent threat to the business. Philip nodded solemnly. Not just to the business, Mother. To our entire family legacy. He removed a folder from his desk and distributed documents to everyone present. These papers show that Audra secretly took out a second mortgage on her share of Preston Jewelers, without board approval or family knowledge. Gasps and murmurs filled the room as family members examined the evidence. Further, Philip continued. She invested that money in her husband's real estate development, the Lighthouse, a project now under criminal investigation for safety violations, permit fraud, and financial irregularities. All eyes turned to Audra, whose face had drained of color. Is this true? Eleanor demanded. Audra's composure cracked. It was a temporary measure. Brennan needed additional capital to complete the project. Once it was successful, I would have restored everything, without telling any of us. Philip interrupted. Without considering the risk to a business that supported this family for generations. I made a business decision, Audra insisted, her voice rising. The potential returns justified the risk. Eleanor's expression hardened. We don't gamble with the family legacy, Audra. That has always been our principle. This isn't about business principles, Audra snapped. This is about Vincent poisoning all of you against me. Vincent, who had remained silent until now, spoke quietly. I provided Philip with information he had a right to know. Nothing more. Liar. Audra stood, trembling with rage. You've orchestrated this entire situation. The building inspections, the investor panic, the criminal investigation. It's all your revenge for my leaving you. Philip shook his head. Audra, Vincent didn't create false building violations or invent financial irregularities. Those existed because of choices you and Brennan made. You don't understand, Audra insisted. Brennan had a vision, a development that would revolutionize luxury living in Boston. Yes, there were shortcuts, but every major project has them. Eleanor's voice cut through the room like ice. Shortcuts. Is that what we're calling fraud now? She turned to Philip. What's the extent of our exposure? If the Lighthouse fails, which seems increasingly likely, we stand to lose not just Audra's investment, but potentially the entire business due to the terms of her secret loan. Vincent observed the family's reactions, shock transforming into anger, directed primarily at Audra. This was the reckoning he had planned from the beginning. Not just Walsh's destruction, but Audra's complete loss of her family's respect and trust. There is another matter we need to discuss, Vincent said, addressing the entire family. The safety of my children during their custody visits with Audra. Audra's head snapped up. You will not use this situation to take my children from me. I'm not trying to take them from you, Vincent replied calmly. I'm ensuring their safety given that Brennan Walsh is now under criminal investigation and has demonstrated a willingness to employ dangerous individuals. He explained Walsh's implied threat against him and the planned ambush at the shipyard, carefully omitting his own role in setting up the trap. Eleanor turned to Audra, her expression a mixture of disappointment and disbelief. You married a man who would resort to violence? He was desperate. Audra cried. Vincent was systematically destroying everything we'd built. So you're not denying it, Philip said quietly. Audra faltered, suddenly realizing the corner she'd backed herself into. I didn't know the details of Brennan's plans, but Vincent has been targeting us from the beginning. And why would he do that? Eleanor asked. Because you betrayed your marriage vows? Or because you involve your children in a relationship with a man of questionable character and ethics? The meeting continued for another hour, with the family methodically dismantling Audra's defenses. Eventually, they reached several decisions. First, Audra would be removed from the Preston Jewelers board immediately, with her shares placed in a family trust. Second, she would agree to supervised visitation with the children until Brennan Walsh's legal situation was resolved. Third, she would cooperate fully with authorities investigating the Lighthouse's financial and safety issues to help mitigate damage to the family name. As the meeting concluded, family members filed out, few making eye contact with Audra. Only Eleanor remained, sitting regally in her chair as Audra stood desolate by the fireplace. Vincent prepared to leave, his objectives accomplished, but Eleanor's voice stopped him. "Mr. Keller, a moment, please." Vincent approached the family matriarch respectfully. Despite everything, Eleanor Preston commanded deference. "You orchestrated this entire scenario, didn't you?" she asked, her voice pitched for his ears alone. Vincent met her gaze steadily. "I merely ensured that the truth came to light." Eleanor studied him with shrewd eyes. "The timing, the precise unveiling of evidence, the calculated destruction of both my daughter's marriage and her standing in this family. That goes beyond revealing truth. That required planning, patience, a willingness to be ruthless." "Perhaps," Vincent acknowledged without elaboration. "My daughter betrayed you," Eleanor continued. "She broke vows and pursued self-interest at the expense of family. For that, she deserved consequences." The elderly woman's expression hardened. "But remember this, Mr. Keller. Those children are still Preston's. They are part of this family's legacy. Whatever happens between you and my daughter, those children will always have a place here." Vincent inclined his head slightly. "I would never separate them from their heritage. Mrs. Preston, see that you don't." Eleanor's tone made it clear the conversation was over. As Vincent left the estate, he found Audra waiting by his car, her eyes red from crying, but her posture defiant. "Are you satisfied now?" she demanded. "You've taken everything from me. My husband, my family, my business, and now you're trying to take my children. You took those things from yourself, Audra," Vincent replied evenly. "Every choice had consequences. You just refused to see them." "I made one mistake," she whispered. "Falling for Brennan's charm, believing in his vision. Does that justify destroying my entire life?" Vincent regarded her dispassionately. "The mistake wasn't falling for Walsh. It was betraying the people who trusted you, your family, your children, me. It was placing your desires above your responsibilities." "And you've never made mistakes?" Audra challenged. "You were cold, distant, always working. You treated our marriage like another security system to be designed and maintained." "Perhaps," Vincent acknowledged. "But I never betrayed you. I never lied to you. I never placed you or our children in danger." Audra's shoulders slumped in defeat. "What happens now?" "Brennan will likely face criminal charges. The lighthouse will be renovated to address safety concerns or possibly condemned. Your family will protect what remains of their business." Vincent's voice softened marginally. "And our children will continue to need both their parents, though under different circumstances than before. You won't try to take full custody? Not if you demonstrate that you can provide a safe, stable environment separate from Walsh and his legal troubles." Vincent's expression remained unreadable. "But understand this. If you ever again place our children in a situation that threatens their well-being, there will be no second chances." As Vincent drove away, leaving Audra standing alone in the moonlight, he felt no triumph or satisfaction, only the cold certainty that justice had been served. Not by courts or laws, but by his own hand. Because Vincent Keller had always understood a fundamental truth: true justice wasn't blind. It was calculating, patient, and when necessary, utterly merciless. Chapter 9, Bedrock. 6 months later, Vincent stood on the observation deck of his newly completed office tower in downtown Boston. The building represented Sentinel Shield's expansion beyond security services into secure architectural design, a venture that had doubled the company's valuation. From his height, he could see the lighthouse in the distance. The once prestigious address was now surrounded by construction equipment as extensive renovations addressed its structural deficiencies. Most of the original residents had fled, accepting losses on their investments rather than risking their safety. Brennan Walsh had pleaded guilty to multiple charges of fraud, bribery, and safety violations. His sentencing was scheduled for the following month, with prosecutors recommending 15 years in federal prison. His business empire had collapsed completely, with creditors fighting over the remains. Preston Jewelers had survived, though with significant restructuring. Philip had proven himself a capable leader, restoring the family's confidence and stabilizing the business. and Audra. She had moved into a modest apartment near her mother's estate. After initially fighting the supervised visitation requirements, she had eventually accepted the restrictions and focused on rebuilding her relationship with her children. She had found work managing a small art gallery, a return to her first passion before the jewelry business had claimed her. Vincent's phone buzzed with a message from Barrett Reese. They've arrived. He took the private elevator to the building's secure residential level, where his new penthouse occupied the entire floor. The children had rooms decorated to their specifications, with Leo's featuring a space theme and Nora's designed around her growing interest in architecture and design. Both children rushed to greet him as he entered. At 11, Nora was showing signs of the poised young woman she would become. 7-year-old Leo remained energetic and curious, though the events of the past year had matured him beyond his years. "Dad, can we go to the simulator room?" Leo asked excitedly, referring to the advanced training facility Vincent had built for Sentinel Shield employees and occasionally allowed the children to use under strict supervision. After dinner, Vincent promised. "Right now, we have a guest." Philip Preston sat in the living room, examining architectural drawings spread across the coffee table. He rose as Vincent entered with the children. "Uncle Philip!" Nora hugged him enthusiastically. After the children had greeted their uncle and been sent to wash up for dinner, Philip turned to Vincent with a serious expression. "The papers are finalized," he said, sliding a document folder across the table. "The family trust is established with both children as beneficiaries. Regardless of what happens with Audra's future status, Nora and Leo will have their Preston heritage secured." Vincent nodded appreciatively. Despite the complexities of the past year, he and Philip had developed a relationship built on mutual respect and concern for the children's welfare. "Eleanor asked me to convey her approval as well," Philip added. "She believes you've handled everything with appropriate restraint." Vincent's lip quirked slightly at the careful phrasing. Eleanor Preston understood exactly what he had done to Brennan Walsh and Audra. She neither condemned nor celebrated his methods, but acknowledged their effectiveness with the cool pragmatism that had preserved the Preston family through multiple generations. "There's another matter," Philip continued. "Audra has completed the court-mandated therapy program. Her counselor recommends gradually transitioning to unsupervised visitation." Vincent had anticipated this development. "I have no objection, provided she maintains appropriate boundaries regarding Walsh." Philip nodded. "She's filed for divorce. Given his incarceration and financial ruin, it should be straightforward." As they discussed practical arrangements, Vincent reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. The revenge he had orchestrated had been complete and devastating, yet he felt no particular satisfaction in Audra's continued struggles. What mattered was that his children were safe, their future secure, and the threat Walsh had represented was permanently neutralized. Later that evening, after Philip had departed and the children were asleep, Vincent stood on his private terrace overlooking the city. Barrett Reese joined him, handing him a glass of whiskey. "To successful operations," Barrett said, raising his own glass. Vincent nodded, taking a measured sip. "Has our friend in Miami made contact?" Barrett smiled slightly. "Right on schedule. The funds were transferred to the offshore account this morning. He believes his identity remains completely secure." "Good." Vincent gazed at the city lights below. "Prepare the initial intelligence package. We move when his daughter's wedding is announced." Barrett raised an eyebrow. "Another wedding? You have a flair for symmetry, sir." Vincent didn't respond directly. The man in Miami, a corrupt shipping magnate who had once tried to sabotage an early Sentinel Shield maritime project, had no idea he was next on Vincent's carefully maintained list of individuals who had crossed him professionally. The man's future son-in-law had already been compromised, unwittingly becoming a key piece in Vincent's meticulous plan. Because while the situation with Audra and Walsh had been personal, Vincent applied the same principles to all aspects of his life. Identify vulnerabilities, develop contingencies, and when necessary, execute without hesitation or mercy. "Dad!" Leo's voice came from the doorway. He stood in pajamas, clutching his dinosaur toy. "I had a bad dream." Vincent's expression softened immediately. He set down his glass and crossed to his son, kneeling to meet his eyes. Want to talk about it? Leo nodded. I dreamed about that man, Mom's husband. He was trying to take me away. Vincent placed a reassuring hand on his son's shoulder. That can never happen, Leo. He can never hurt you or anyone in our family again. Because you stopped him? Leo asked, his young face serious. Vincent nodded. I will always protect you and Nora. That's what fathers do. As he led Leo back to bed, Vincent reflected on the fundamental truth that had guided his actions throughout the past year. Love and loyalty represented the only true currency in life. Those who honored these values earned his unwavering protection. Those who betrayed them experienced his calculated vengeance. It was a simple code carved into the bedrock of his character, as immovable